Fantasy Draft, the only rake-free daily fantasy site, brings the heat again with a $175,000 guaranteed rake-free contest, the Hooters main event. This is the largest and only rake-free contest of its kind you'll find for Week 15. And remember, only on Fantasy Draft are 100% of the entry fees paid to contestant winners. Sign up at FantasyDraft.com with referral code WBLZ, and you'll get a free 7-day trial membership.
Ironic Radio proudly presents Daily Fantasy Sports, Fantasy Foreplay, powered by DailyFantasyLines.com.
Play action. Minshew wide open for the touchdown.
Broncos jump. Free play for Rodgers. He knows where to go with it. For Valdez-Scantling. In the end zone. It's a Packer touchdown.
Jamal Agnew was benched a week ago in the win over the Chargers, but back in there today, a dangerous return man is Agnew, and he's across midfield, and he might take this one all the way. He will take it all the way. Jamal Agnew, 100 yards, no penalty flags on the field.
And the flea flicker. Carr has an open receiver, and it's J.J. Nelson, and Nelson is in for the score. Mahomes looking to throw it. He will. Delivers downfield. Catch made. McCall Hardman. Goodbye. A blur. Touchdown, Kansas City. On 4th and 5. Jones steps up. Takes off. He's in. Touchdown. Prescott to the end zone. Touchdown. It's another one for Amari Cooper. Baltimore Ravens on the move. Back to the bread and butter. Slashing is Ingram. Mark Ingram, a stiff arm, and he hurls inside the pylon. Touchdown, Baltimore.
Philip Lindsay, is he stopped? No! Touchdown Broncos!
That's picked off. They're going to come the other way. And this is Jamal Adams with a block and a pick six.
59 seconds to go. Kyle Allen over the middle. That one is complete. DJ Moore in for the touchdown. Gibson punt, travel to the 47. And Harris with a little wiggle. And there he goes. Deontay Harris going to take it the distance.
I don't believe what I just saw.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to DFS Fantasy Foreplay on this Week 15. Joining me, as always, I have Dan McClellan, Senior Staff Writer, Ironic Media, as well as our stats man extraordinaire, Mr. Webboy. Gentlemen, how are you? Welcome to the program.
Hey.
All right, so how did everyone fare this past week? It was a very strange week, a very tough week, considering it was the first slate in many weeks with no buys, that it was a complete, 14-game slate, 13-game slate, which was one of the largest that we've had at any point since week 3. It was tough. Our little lineup that we created over here for on the podcast last week totally bottomed out and did nothing.
Decimated by injuries.
Everybody got decimated by injuries. Every time you looked up at any point last week, somebody was going down hurt, whether it was Mike Evans with his hamstring or Jared Cook going out with a concussion, Darius Geis getting his knees taken out by my Packers. You know, I mean, it didn't materialize any which way we thought it would. But there is one bright side to this whole thing. Mike Evans scored his first touchdown of the season.
True.
In all the negative, there is a positive. So, Dan, you had a good week.
I had a fantastic week. I feel you can sense it in my voice. I got 5th place on a tournament on Sunday for $400. If I had scored 0.33 points more, I would have won 1,000 with 2nd place. And I had Leonard Fournette in that lineup who scored 9 points and it wasn't really his fault. It was that the Chargers just blew out the Jaguars, and by midway through the third quarter of that game, it looked like a preseason game with backups galore. And so if Fournette would have had one more series, I would have had $1,000 win. Came back and I won the Sunday through Monday tournament, Sunday night through Monday night tournament for another $160. I was bored, so I dabbled in NHL, and I won a small tournament in that. So, yeah, it was a good week, and I'm looking at my account, and I'm very happy with it right now. Another week that's remotely similar, I'll be pulling some money out.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, might as well, right? House money anyway. Why don't we get into our little Hot Mess Express? I can just look at our lineup right here and start. I can't put Darius Geis on there. He got injured. He would have probably had a decent day if that didn't happen. Our video producer, Thump, over there, he let me know his displeasure with my Packers over that. He felt it was a dirty hit. Yeah. I did not see the game, so I would have to take his word and say it probably wasn't on the up and up. So we can't put him on there, but outside of that, we can put Kyle Rudolph on there with a whopping 3.1 points. And since we stacked him with Kirk Cousins, who only got 13.58 points, we'll put him on there as well. Marvin Jones Jr., it's not your fault. Your rookie quarterback imploded, and you could do nothing at all except 3 for 38. And you can even put Leonard Fournette on there. We were high on him. All of us were high on him last week, and he had 25% ownership in the Hooters tournament, and he got a whopping 9.3 points. So with that, anybody have anybody else they care to add to this lovely train of disaster?
Well, let's look at my lineup that scored 85 points last week and see.
Is this the article lineup?
Oh, no, I don't. Maybe.
Now, that lineup we put in at 85 points.
No, it was our lineup, yeah. Oh, you hit Kirk Cousins and Kyle Rudolph. And
it was a disaster.
Oh, how about the Panthers defense at -3?
Yeah, that would be my suggestion. I was hot and heavy on the Panthers defense, and in fact, as Wren was saying before, our video producer over there even sent me messages. He's like, what the hell are you thinking?
Oh, I have when I need it because I touted him in the lineup. Sony Michel just did nothing I mean, he should have gone off, and I guess is he dealing with some sort of nagging injury? He is not living up to expectations.
No, he's terrible. He's one-dimensional.
Yeah, he's
run, fall down.
James White is the guy there, and even though he didn't carry the ball much in that loss.
I actually watched a replay of that game. I think it was Wednesday night. NFL Network was re-airing that game, and I guess it's condensed format. Mm-hmm. And it looked like the Patriots were going to take it to them, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Mahomes just something clicked there, and that game just ran away. Looking at the running backs, I mean, most of the top 20 running backs had decent days. I mean, you even have unsuspecting names here like Brian Hill at 12.2, who's done virtually nothing. Even David Johnson racked up 13.3. AP got his 13.6. I think that would have been opposite. I think you could have flip-flopped those numbers with Geis if Geis hadn't gone out injured. I'll still stick to that.
Hot Mess Express, Alvin Kamara.
He burned me in DK all over the place. Everybody was hot on him.
Well, we talked about that in the podcast.
He was so cheap. He was $7,000 at DK. How do you not play him?
Because especially the matchup was brutal. It was brutal matchup. I agree that at some point he's going to go off with a couple weeks that are left here, but just the matchup wasn't. I mean, I know the price was right, but the matchup wasn't there.
Yeah, that was 6.3 points with a fumble. Also, four receptions for 25 yards.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. 25 rushing yards, 4 receptions for 18 yards.
I'm only going to – this is more on a – not so much Melvin Gordon being on Hot Mess Express because he got 19.4 points. But I looked at the matchup, and the Jaguars just had not given up much in terms of passing yards to running back. So I wrote in my article that this is a Melvin Gordon week and likely not an Austin Eckler week. Well, Gordon didn't let me down with the 19 points, but Eckler led everybody with 37.3 points.
RB1.
Yeah, and really one of the reasons why it was an all-out blitz and they just dumped it off to Eckler, and everybody had ran by him, and he went 85 yards for a touchdown. So those big plays happen.
Mm-hmm.
You can add Jamison Crowder to that with 6 points against Miami. You were at that game, Webb, so
yeah,
you got to see that game live. Jets squeaked out a win, 22-21.
And I lost that.
I'm going to add Paris Campbell on there. He was kind of like my salary saver over on DK. He got a whopping 4.2. Only 6.6% owned, which would have been nice if he actually did something with it. But I had Kamara in that lineup with 7.3. And my lineup last week was Kamara, McCaffrey, Freeman. I think the tight end win of the week was Ian Thomas, Carolina. Even in that loss, he had 16.7 points.
Yes.
I'm sure that only puts him in top 5.
I don't know. Zach Ertz had like 30, right?
Yeah. Noah Fant was the leader with 24.3. Tyler Higbee with 21.6. Jared Cook with 20. Kelsey with 19. Ertz isn't on the slate because it was a Monday night game. Kittle 18.7. Ian Thomas 16.7.
I think the big winner out of all the tight ends this week was Cameron Brate. 0% owned, 13 points.
Yeah, and you can say the same thing about Nick O'Leary.
Nick O'Leary also.
Oh, that's my sneaky play of the week that I was going to bring up.
Yeah, well, he was, almost min salary last week? I mean, you can go with Hayden Hurst, too, who also had a touchdown.
Yeah, for sure.
At min salary.
I actually, this week, I think I'm back on the Higbee bandwagon. He's just seeing so many targets and has definitely factored himself into that offense. And there's some interesting stat things I'll bring up when we get to that point. I really don't have anybody else. I mean, you can put Aaron Jones. You can't put Aaron Jones. I was going to say you can put Aaron Rodgers on there. He did not have a great game at all. Neither did Devontae Adams. Not for an at-home game against, I don't want to say like a weak Washington, because Washington has been playing well and has thrown some upsets out there, but that was definitely a winnable game that they probably should have won by more.
DJ Moore, arguably, with only 12 points against Atlanta after he'd been so hot for such a long stretch. And was such a
I
great
just think
matchup.
that was a product of the quarterback, to be honest with you. I think that was I think that entire game is just quarterback game script.
I don't disagree with that.
Same thing with what happened over in Detroit too. All the low position players. It was just the product of bad quarterback play.
No, they only scored 7 points. Couldn't move the ball.
Yeah. All right. Well, why don't we jump into this week? Some very interesting plays that we can talk about. Particularly, I think this week is probably the most difficult week to go and pick a quarterback. Russell Wilson and Russell Wilson's dealing with a hand issue. So is Deshaun Watson, and they're both the top 2 highest costing QBs on this board that I'm looking at.
With the crappiest matchups.
Yeah, and they have great. Well, I wouldn't say Houston's matchup against Tennessee is crappy at all. I mean, we saw what Denver did to him last week. They made him look like a high school team.
Yeah.
The only thing that saved Deshaun Watson's week and DeAndre Hopkins and anybody else that you may have rostered was garbage time.
Yes.
And that's why as fantasy players, we don't really care what garbage time is. Great, garbage time. Run cover 2. We'll just throw the ball all day. Give us one more point and another point. Oh, there's another 10 points. Great, perfect. Save my day.
Jameis Winston's also dealing with a small fracture in his hand and is going up against Detroit. Great matchup. Throwing a ton of yards, but you don't have a Mike Evans there. I'm on Godwin for the because I think he's going to see a ton of targets. I'm just worried that they're going to, without Evans there, is there going to be just every attempt to try to shut him down?
Well, that was one of the correlations and upside things that I wanted to talk about. 23% of that target share needs to be redistributed. So I really only see it. Unfortunately, it's Arians and it can go anywhere, but I think this really gives an uptick to OJ Howard.
Agreed.
I think Godwin, he led the team last week What did he hold in 9 of 11 targets? He was on the field for 130 of 153 snaps. I like Godwin as almost a lock, whether you're playing cash games or GPPs. I think OJ Howard is just an interesting idea to toss into a GPP. I wouldn't necessarily play him in cash, but I kind of like Howard. I might have some exposure to him. I'm not going to say I'm going to be overweight or he's like my tight end play of the week, but do
you like any of those other, cheaper wide receivers for the Bucs, like a Perriman at 8.8 or a Watson at 7.4?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I think you got to be crazy not to take a seriously hard look at the Packers game. No Juju Smith-Schuster. Possibly a limited or no Devontae Adams. And I think a name that I've heard come out of Wren's mouth quite a few times, must take a hard look at one Mr. Alan Lazard.
Well, he's certainly cheap enough.
Yeah, I like the Lazard play this week. I haven't heard much further news on Adams other than questionable.
Well, Friday's injury or Friday's designation will let us know what the clear-cut story is. But I think everything I'm reading and hearing, either way, he's going to be limited because they're going to need him more in the coming weeks. And they don't want that toe to be a problem. So, I mean, you take it for what it's worth and watch the reports. I mean, we are talking about the Bears, too, which the Packers could light up.
Or get lit up.
Right. It could go either way. But, yeah. I mean, who are they throwing to? MVS? Haven't really used them all year long. Hey, he's been.
I think your targets are going to be Lazard. Rodgers seems to have some affinity for Geronimo Allison. I don't buy into that. I don't believe in Allison. Not at all. He's just one of those players to me that it's like it either is or it isn't, and you never know when it's going to be.
And he's hurt too. He's got the knee problem, although they've cleared him, but he's hurt too. He still has the knee issue. He practiced full on Thursday.
Yeah. All right, let's take this back to QB conversation here. I think smart money says go at Wilson, but that offense just looks so terrible. I think the only place I'm really going in that Seattle-Carolina game is I'm going to go with the chalk, and that's going to be Carson. I'd rather save my cash. I kind of really the couple of guys that I'm looking at this week that I actually really like. Tannehill, I'm on that bandwagon. I'm on that train. Even at 12-4, I think it's well worth the money, especially against Houston, who a rookie just lit them up. Ryan Tannehill is far from a rookie. He did take Miami to the playoffs before he blew out his knee. I like Prescott at 12K. Going up against the Rams. I also like the other side of the ball, Goff, coming back at Dallas. I think a Goff-Higbee stack or a Goff-Woods-Higbee stack could be that could end up being something that takes down, $1 million maker or the Hooters tournament.
I have concerns with Prescott against the Rams, especially what the Rams did against Seattle, and they've been a very consistent defense. It's interesting is Dallas has put up, I think, the second most amount of yards, but they're like the ninth in terms of scoring. So they move the ball up and down the field, but aren't getting in the end zone a lot in comparison to the yard movement.
I don't think many people are going to be on him. I think that's kind of why I'm tossing him out there in a GPP play. I think Tannehill is cash lock, personally.
He's my starting quarterback this week in my personal lineup.
And I think he's I have him in personal lineup. I also have him in the preset lineup that I set for when we build our lineup later. What about Kyler Murray going against Cleveland at home? He's 11-1. I mean, Cleveland hasn't been as awesome as they could be, particularly on defense. They've been getting torched left and right. They're definitely not the defense they were in the beginning of the season, where we were like, got to play Cleveland. That defense is for real.
I think that's a good call. I mean, he's averaging 20 points a game. He's only he had 14 against the Rams with good defense, and he's going against two really good defenses in the last couple of weeks. But before then, I mean, even against San Francisco, he got 26 points. Tampa Bay 30 points. San Francisco 23 again. So I definitely see the potential there.
Yeah, Webby's going to love this one. If you want to pay all the way down at 10,200, we have America's quarterback, Eli Manning. Would you build a GPP lineup around Eli going against Miami?
Is he playing? Has there been a nation on Daniels?
It's not.
He's out. Okay.
Yeah, there is a temptation there. I hate to admit it. Let's see.
So then that makes the rookie receiver even more viable play.
Slayton.
Yep.
Yeah. The one thing about
he's
Slayton,
really the only one in the $10,000 price range that I'm kind of even remotely considering, and it kind of pains me to say it, but Kyle Allen, no thanks, not after what you did. David Blau, you just got embarrassed. You look like the one who were seeing things.
Yes, if you wanted to pay down for quarterback, I mean it's 10.
Andy Dalton at 10K going against New England. You want to take any piece of that game? I think New England's defense this is the week to go back on New England's defense.
6,700. I've got Philly locked in. Philly against Washington, and
division game.
Washington's a mess.
How about Gardner Minshew at 10-9?
He ain't worth it if he was 5,000.
Well, he's Dan's article QB.
He is.
Yeah, but Dan's also been riding the fucking Saquon Barkley, and how's that worked for you?
I was not riding the Saquon Barkley. In fact, I said I'm not on him this week.
This week, I know, but it's been like...
and everybody else is.
Well, this is a great spot for Barkley going up against Miami.
It's a great spot. I just think that if you were to look at if I have to choose between, and that's basically it was a choice between Barkley and Fournette for my article, and Fournette going against the Raiders, and just how much, with the exception of last week, has been involved as a pass catcher for PPR. I kind of lean towards Fournette, who's a few $100s cheaper.
I'm going to say to you that I'm going the opposite way in that game, and I'm taking Josh Jacobs, hands down.
If he plays.
He's playing. There ain't no way he's not playing.
Has that been determined that he's playing? Because if not, DeAndre Washington is a great play.
He was limited Thursday, trending in the right direction.
Remember, it's a broken shoulder blade.
And it's a shoulder injury. I don't think it's broken.
No, it's a broken shoulder. He has a broken shoulder blade.
Here's the problem with this game is I think we're going to hear today on Friday that he's questionable with the game time decision.
That's exactly what it's going to be.
And it's going to be an afternoon game.
Yep.
And there is no, once at 10 in the morning, once these tournaments go off, everything's locked on Fantasy Draft. There's no late swap. So do you risk a 0, or do you go with DeAndre Washington going, okay, well, if Josh Jacobs plays, maybe he can still hit value as a pass catcher. And if Jacobs doesn't play, then all of a sudden you're sitting golden because he's got this fantastic matchup and there's less ownership because of the uncertainty.
I really believe that the Raiders...
Or does he re-injure himself too?
I think everybody who can play in that game is going to play. I think the Raiders are going to destroy Jacksonville. It is their final game in the Coliseum.
Yeah, they thought that last year, though.
Well, now it's a certainty. It's the final. Yeah. I like the Josh Jacobs play personally. I know it's 13-3, but all indications I'm reading say he plays, and it might not be on a limited count since, they're out of the playoffs. They got no shot.
So why would you even play him?
Why risk it? This is your future.
Because
he's a rookie.
It's the final game, and he's going to want to play for the fans. Everybody's going to want to play. It's probably one of the biggest games this weekend.
I think it's an interesting game to stack. I think this game could blow up.
Yep, it certainly can. But if you're looking for that miracle, this could very well be the game right here. I mean, the guy has been lit up all year long, has he not been?
Yeah. Well, here's how I ended up on Gardner Minshew for the article is I looked at the stack value report on 4, and the highest return to value report was Minshew with Chris Conley. Because they really don't have to score a lot to be able to return a huge value. It's 10, 9, and 7,000. But by having that cheap quarterback wide receiver stack really opened up to be able to get a lot of the other, bigger name players into my lineup. And it was that same report that that led to last week with the $400 win when I had Tannehill and I think it was AJ Brown went off too. So I was kind of going back to the well with that.
It makes sense. I can't disagree with it. It makes sense. I'm just not a huge fan of Minshew. He's so iffy.
Streaky.
Yeah. I mean,
he's definitely a streaky player.
It's not a cash game, though.
It's a tournament.
It's a tournament. I know what you're saying. I mean, it's just he can be so streaky. One week put up 16, and then the next week 27, and then the next week 5.
Yep.
And then he comes out with 2 great games at 21 and almost 25 points, and then comes up
against for three weeks in a row, 14, 11, 13. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it comes up against Houston, and they can't. It's 14 points and
but
300 yards, but only 14 points because they can't get in the end zone.
But look who else is in this lineup. I've got Carson. I've got Fournette. I've got Henry. If he plays, if he doesn't play, then I have to make a swap there. Right. And I've got Goodwin, and I've got Zach Ertz.
Yeah, man.
It's a solid lineup for sure, especially a GPP lineup. I mean, you can't poke holes at it. I mean, you can say I don't like the QB play, but that could be the winning stack right there.
But you don't know what. Yeah, you just don't.
You're going to have to go for somewhere else. Let me see if I can get. Ownership percentages. Let's see here.
But as long as I'm talking about this lineup, the other interesting thing I did here is I put Nick O'Leary in as the flex for 6,000 to be able to get all those other guys in there. And what caught my eye is every week, we look at the fantasy points against report, and we're always, it's against Arizona for tight end over and over again. And Arizona still, for season long, is the worst against tight ends. But it was not that long ago that the Raiders were in the middle of the pack against tight ends, and now they're second worst, and not by much. So over the last, 8 weeks or so, the Raiders arguably have been worse against tight ends than the Cardinals. So if you're looking at, a Njoku against the Cardinals, which is certainly a solid play, or Nick O'Leary, and Njoku's 8,000, and O'Leary's 6,000 against the Raiders, I think they're going to have a pretty similar target share, and arguably O'Leary has the better matchup at this point.
I got your ownership here. Gardner Minshew, 10,009. Projected ownership of 1.7%.
It's almost min.
Projected points, 15.69.
What's Chris Conley ownership projected?
Connolly. Let's see here.
Who the hell is Chris Connolly?
He's now the number one receiver for the Jaguars.
He's wide receiver 3 for Jacksonville. He is a possession receiver. Okay. I could see him 5 for 80 and a touch.
Well, he has the exact same quarterback matchup that A.J. Brown had last week that and just lit him up.
Why am I not seeing him anywhere?
0.0%. That's what I want to see. No ownership.
Probably close. Let's see here, Corey. Chris Connolly, 7K, 4.9% ownership, projected 11 points. So there's your 6 touchdown and 5 for 50.
Yeah. But the projections you're looking at are probably half PPR, right?
No, these are specifically tailored for fantasy draft.
Okay.
These are fantasy draft ownership percentages. So any of these any other low price QBs? I mean, it seems like we're all in the same place. It's either Tannehill, Dan, you've got Minshew on the radar. Doesn't sound like anybody's keen on Watson, or anybody's super keen on.
2 guys I'm debating over is Ryan Tannehill and Aaron Rodgers.
Really, Rodgers?
Yep. Yeah, because I like the Lazard play, and you might as well go for the double dip on that. And if you really have got the testicles, cojones, balls, you grab someone on the other side like Allen Robinson.
Oh, game stack it. Come back with Robinson, and so your wide receivers are Lazard and Robinson. You got Rodgers as your QB. What kind of flexibility does that give you for running back? Can you throw Jones in and go all the way in, or do you go on the other side and maybe take a Bo Scarborough, or not Bo Scarborough, Tariq Cohen,
hang on,
or Montgomery?
Pull out Tannehill, and I'll throw Rodgers in. That leaves me $500. And who do you want to? Okay, so I got Josh Jacobs and Chris Carson in as running backs. Which one am I pulling out?
Jacobs, because he's questionable.
Okay, so we don't. That leaves me 13-8 on the table for a running back.
And what are they getting for Aaron Jones?
13-7.
There you go. Now the question is, are there any other holes in that lineup? Like, who's your tight end?
Zach Ertz.
That's solid.
The hole would be
your 2 flex plays.
Depends on how you want to look at it. Okay. Do you believe in Tyler Lockett against Carolina?
After he came out and threw a temper tantrum to the media that the team is doing nothing but focusing on the run and not looking over the top, maybe they changed that game script a little bit after they got embarrassed by the Rams. I mean, there is that thought process you could put into play there.
Okay, so we slate Tyler Lockett in thinking, all right, it's a bit of a more passing game against a horrible Carolina.
What are they getting for Lockett?
12-9.
Okay. And who's your other flex?
Well, I have 9-3 left. And my other flex spot, again, playing the averages with Eli Manning, pitching the ball, Darius Slayton. So you got Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Chris Carson, Allen Lazard, Allen Robinson II, Zach Ertz, Tyler Lockett, Darius Slayton, and Philly's defense, leaving $100 on the table.
I actually kind of like that lineup for GPP.
Yeah.
I actually really. Let me see if I can get that ownership percentage for Aaron Rodgers.
But I think this is the lineup of
Aaron Rodgers, 1.9% owned, 17.19 points projected.
Do you have any concerns to go back to week 1 and what happened in that game against Chicago?
Week 1 was the first week of playing this offense live.
Yeah, it was also the first. It was a Thursday night game or something like that too.
It was the first game of the season.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a Thursday night game, and we all know Thursday night games are low scoring, under the spread. I mean, it was a 10-3 game. What did he do? He threw 18 for 203, 1 touchdown. It was a 10-3 game.
Yeah, I don't think you can hold a lot
And it was the first game in this offense. He played no preseason snaps either.
So
that was essentially a preseason game.
I'm more worried about week 5 and what happened there with Dallas. Where
it was the Aaron Jones day. That was the day Aaron Jones had 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, but
they didn't need to throw the ball.
His passer rating was horrible that day, too. It was an 85. 9 points. I mean, he threw up another 85 against the Rams in a loss. Only threw for 161 yards on 23 completions. But, yeah, I think, look, I like the Rodgers play this week. It's a toss-up. If I'm looking to stack that game, the Seattle game I like also. I want a piece of that game. And the running back, I mean, Chris Carson's has just been on fire lately.
Well, that and there's nobody really. It's him now. I mean, Porces might get a few breather touches, but they're just. You talk about a workhorse running back. You're not going to get one better than Carson in this type of a matchup. So, I mean, he should be the chalk of chalk this week.
I want to throw one name there to you, Webb. It may be in place of Tyler Lockett. That's going to save you some cash.
Okay. Do we need to save cash? But go ahead.
You don't need to, but I'm going to give you these stat line, and you tell me if you feel it's a better play. Robert Woods. He leads the league in target share 35% over the last 2 weeks, racking up 27 targets. Going against Dallas. He's 11-7, I think.
Let's see what we got out of him here. He had a great game against Arizona.
He's done nothing up until literally like the last 2 weeks. He has not even been on the radar.
Yeah, last 4 weeks.
I know that because I have him in multiple season-long leagues, and he's done nothing. Very streaky.
Against Dallas. What's his matchup against Dallas?
Let me see if I can get that for you.
Dan, you got that?
And, hold on.
I know you always have the matchups.
Repeat the question. I got distracted. I'm sorry.
Robert Woods
against Cowboys.
Yeah, I have that. I'll pull that up right now.
Against
Woods. That's a decent matchup. He's on Chewbacca. Chulubi Awazi, who has a 56% catch rate. He's allowing 1.68 fantasy points per target. So that's anything over 1.5 is good. 2 is you really want to attack. The only concern here is the yards per target. It's mid 8.68. This is a matchup that certainly would not shy away from.
Okay. My only concern with Robert Woods, Wren, is Goff throws the ball to Cooper Kupp inside the red zone. Woods scored his first touchdown in 14 weeks, or 13 weeks, actually, last week. Even when he gives the ball to Gurley in the red zone, there's 10 touchdowns there. So I think with Woods, you might see another one of those great games with no fantasy points.
Well, you get your PPR in yards. I mean, a touchdown always helps, but if he's getting, say he goes 13 for 165, are you really missing that touchdown?
Is that happening against Dallas? This is in Arizona.
I'm just putting it out there. I mean, he's getting the target share. He seems to be high on, and I don't think Kupp's the big red zone target right now. I think that's Higbee. So you take Higbee and throw him in your tight end slot for 8.2K, and now you're saving even more cash.
You got to run Zach Ertz against Washington. It's Zach.
As long as we're talking wide receivers and quarterback matchups, let's go through a few more names that have really good matchups.
Yes.
And they have a variety of prices. So we talked about Chris Goodwin. He's going against a quarterback, Justin Coleman, 1.9 fantasy points per target, and you feel he's going to get a ton of targets. So that is a primo match there. Jarvis Landry, I think, is a really, really interesting option. He's going against Brian Murphy, who gives up nearly 2 points per fantasy target. And Landry is really now the number one wide receiver in Cleveland. Tyreek Hill may be a player that they're not everybody playing, he really hasn't gone off lately. Could go off. He's going up against Chris Harris, who allows 2.1 fantasy points per target. And on the cheap side, a value play I think to look at is JJ or Seeker-Whiteside, because there's not a lot of other options there for the Eagles. And, he's going against Fabian Moreau, who's allowing 2.2 fantasy points per target. And finally, the last one that's from Willow Target is Deebo Samuel, who's going up against Isaiah Oliver, who is at 1.9 fantasy points per target. So I think those are names.
Samuel's horrible.
Yeah, he's in one of my lineups that I built. I went with a Garoppolo lineup going against Atlanta. I think my lineup's Garoppolo. I know Deebo Samuel's my. Let me see, I have it right here. Jimmy Garoppolo, Saquon Barkley, Chris Carson, Chris Godwin, Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz, James White, Tyler Higbee, Chargers defense.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. Tough matchup for the Chargers, but they have some playmakers back.
It was a money. It was a money thing.
It actually, there's a lot of logic to it because they do have some of their better corners are back, so it's a better defense now than it's been all season.
Yeah, the other lineup I have, this was the placeholder lineup, was Tannehill, Fournette, Miles Sanders, Corey Davis, Emmanuel Sanders, Zach Ertz, Raheem Mostert, Chris Godwin, Bucks defense.
So, two more quarterback names I want to throw into the mix. Not that I think we'll go with them, but I think for GPP, play Ryan Fitzpatrick against the Giants. Because you never know when he's going to put up a 35, and that could happen. And just for fun, because I think I heard this when listening to XM, that Drew Lock against the Chiefs.
It's a great matchup.
He dated the daughter of Clark Hunt. So it's we've talked about a storyline there. That sounds like a fun one. So
it's a great matchup. Had a great game this week. I mean, he does throw a few interceptions here and there, but
he's a rookie.
Yeah, I mean, his quarterback rating.
You liked him coming out of
yes, I did.
Was it Iowa?
I believe so. Didn't I have him? I can't remember where I had him going. I had him going to Denver. I called that one in the draft that night. I just had him at the. Yeah, no, I called him. Yeah, I like Locke a lot, and I think he's got potential there. I mean, Jesus Christ, he had a 136 passer rating last week against who? Houston.
Yeah,
Houston.
Well, Houston's defense is terrible.
So I'm going to submit this lineup as I have it. Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Chris Carson, Alan Lazard, Allen Robinson II, Zach Ertz, Tyler Lockett, Darius Slayton, Phillies defense. I'm going to put that up against what we come up with today.
All right, so
and I'm interested. I'm looking forward to going with everybody playing. Going in some different directions than I went in the article because I think you can go down one path that just leads you in a completely different direction, and I think that's good.
A couple other running backs I want to throw out here. Any interest in McCaffrey at $19,000?
Only if Henry isn't playing, then I would think about maybe going up. But I think Henry's actually is overtaken the at least on Fantasy Pros for the consensus number one for this week, and he's of course $3,000 cheaper. I think there is some concern there. I think there's a correlation without having Greg Olsen in that lineup that it's freeing defenses up to really focus. You don't have to protect the middle of the field quite as much, which has lessened McCaffrey's impact in the last couple of weeks.
My opinions on that is you could definitely run McCaffrey at 19 this week if you pay attention to any of the things or the value players that we just talked about, and you can get behind some of the thoughts, like running Slayton from the Giants at what was he 7.6,
or Whiteside or something like Here's another devil's advocate of not doing it is, look, if a running back, if any of these guys, a Henry or a Fournette, or even if you pay 19 and you get 30 points from one of these running backs, you're happy with that performance. You really want 2x, but if somebody gives you 30, you're really, that you're not going to complain about it at all. And then I look at Zach Ertz, who over 3 of the last 4 weeks, he's scored between 27 and 30 points. 3 of the last 5 weeks. And I just think he gets even more targets this week with the depleted wide receiver core in Philadelphia. So the potential for him to hit 30, I think, is just as good as one of these elite running backs, and maybe just as good as McCaffrey. And he is so much cheaper.
Yeah, I know it's tough because it's $19,000 and you got to get 38 out of him. And he's averaging 30. And his week over performance, McCaffrey we're talking about here, is been streaky against Washington, against Atlanta, which were both losses. 25 one week, 17 the other. You got to go back to 10, 11, and 12, 8, and 9. I mean, those weeks were it's tough with him because he's just a beast of. And now he's getting all those targets constantly. 50 to 80 receiving yards a week with anywhere between 7 and 10 or 7 and 12 receptions. He's really seemed to shine in that horrible offense that they have as being the guy on the checkdowns. Is the running back. Checkdowns. Check down.
Yeah.
But then you got to look at like Dalvin Cook too, who's like $3,000 cheaper with a decent matchup against the Chargers, right? They're playing the Chargers. Yeah.
Yep. In LA, so no weather considerations, warm weather.
But then when you start to diagnose the numbers here, he's done nothing in 3 weeks. He's been averaging 15 points in 3 weeks, and at $16,000, 16.7. How is Henry? Is he okay? Or I know he's questionable, and I'm sure he's going to play, but.
What Henry are you getting at that point? And this is a great spot for him, too.
Right. It's.
Let me throw out a couple other names here. Not that I think they're going to end up in any of our lines, but they're definitely viable options. We talked about Barkley. We made fun of Barkley. He hasn't done anything. If he's going to have a great spot to do things right now, it's going to be against Miami. He is a generational player. We kind of have to do that. My biggest concern about Barkley is I don't think he's healthy. I don't think he's healthy from that high ankle sprain. I think it's going to take an entire offseason to get there. I don't think he's going to prove me wrong because I'm opening my mouth, but it's a good spot for him. But do you want to pay 14.6 for him? Not knowing what he's done, considering he's done pretty much nothing week over week, even against Detroit.
You say he's in a good spot, and I don't disagree, but he was in a really good spot against the Jets.
No, Jets are the top-rated rush defense.
Yeah, he was in a good spot against the Jets.
He was a good spot against Green Bay. If you want to say he was in a good spot, that would be a better correlation. Green Bay versus the Jets. Jets have the top rush defense or run defense in the league.
Look, here's a guy who was just all out on fire last year. Okay? Over 100 yards in almost every game last year, except I think for like 4. This year, he's got 3 games over 100, and that's it.
Now, the question is, were they all games that Eli Manning was a QB? Because there's a correlation to make with...
Week 12, Week 13, Week 14, he rushed for over 100 yards. 11, 12, 13, and 14. I don't have the numbers to go back further than that. I know 7 or 8 and 10, because 9 was their bye week.
All right, so the question is, play or no play?
I'm not a fan of Saquon Barkley. I've tried to talk you guys out of it multiple times, where it's been a sneaky play against Detroit. It was a great move because he saw more catches out of the backfield. I don't see him being used like that with Manning, who seems to be in love with 2 wide receivers, one being Slayton. Last week, 17 attempts, 66 yards. He caught 3 balls for 1 yard. One.
Yeah.
The week before that, 3 balls he caught for 32 yards. Week before that, 2 balls for 1 yard. I mean, you talk about great positions in the Green Bay game. I mean, he had 100 all-purpose, but it's 14 points. Not at 14 grand.
Yeah, it's 1x value.
Yeah. I like.
Let me give you a couple other names here. Todd Gurley against Dallas.
See, now that's a tough.
That's an interesting play.
Yeah, and he's cheap.
11-3.
Yeah, he's cheap, and the last 2. Well, you throw out the Baltimore game where they were pretty much shut down.
I think you have to throw out every game when somebody plays Baltimore.
I mean, you got to throw out the Baltimore game, Week 12, where they shut him down. And plus, they really didn't use him. I mean, he had 6 carries for 22 yards. He had 3 receptions out of the backfield for -3. I mean, Baltimore just shut them down. They only scored 6 points that game.
Yeah, you take that game, he's been very consistent over the last month. 21.3 twice and an 18.5. And the 21.3 came against Chicago, which is a good run defense. So I think that's a solid play with almost guaranteed over 1.5x return and a very likely greater than 2x return.
And let's not forget the Pittsburgh game. He ran the ball like crazy in that game. I mean, they held him to 73 yards, but he got his 12 carries.
It's also a prime-time game, right?
Yes.
No.
Yes, it is. It's a 4:25 game.
Yeah. Oh, it's not prime time, but it's there's going to be a lot of eyes on that one.
Yeah.
All right, 2 more I want to give you. Raheem Mostert, based on some of the things that we've said offline with each other, he is basically the lead back in San Fran right now, in a pretty decent spot going up against Atlanta. 10.2K.
Yeah, 10.2K at a 4 o'clock game also.
I like that too. And look at those back. He's scored 50 points in the last 2 weeks.
Yep. And that's one of the higher Vegas totals on the slate. The Niners are projected for 29.5 points.
The only issue I have, I don't know if he gets the workload against Atlanta this week that he's seen or saw against Baltimore, against New England. I mean, even Green Bay really didn't. The coach's comments of, he's given us no choice but to use him just sounded a little strange. Like they don't believe in him. They barely used him all year long. You got to go back to.
You got to remember, he's a rookie too.
No, I understand that. You got to go. I mean,
he's basically just because of his performances, and this is. I mean, if you look at week over week, he's made the most of every opportunity he's had. So I could take that comment as he's given us no choice because through the course of the season, every time we hand this kid the ball, he does things. Well, he catches it. He rushes it. He does what he's supposed to do. He's blocking like he's supposed to,
Look, not necessarily, okay? Week 2, they used the hell out of him. They used him in the backfield. They used him rushing. He put up over 100 points for 24 in fantasy points. Against the Pittsburgh game, he was heavily used, 12 out of the backfield. After that was it.
Tevin Coleman came back from injury.
Yeah, so I'm more concerned about what's happening now. And now,
Green Bay, they didn't use him. He got eight looks, 6 carries, 1 out of one receiving. It was okay. Baltimore,
what did he do against New Orleans?
10 carries for 90. No, excuse me, 10 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown. That's 6.9 average, and 2 catches out of the backfield for 20 yards and a touchdown. 24.9 points. Against a game that was a massive shootout.
Yeah.
Baltimore, low-scoring game, 26 points. He had 19 carries for 146. The big question is against Atlanta, who you don't know what you're going to get with Atlanta, but you know damn well Matt Ryan's throwing for 300 yards. So, Niners defense, tremendous. We know that.
Niners defense, not what it was.
Well, still a tremendous defense. Look what they...
You don't have your island cornerback.
I know, but look what they did to Baltimore. Even though it was a loss, look what they did with Baltimore.
Yeah, true. All right, last time I want to give you, I think you can call it contrarian, not contrarian. Maybe sub 10% ownership. How about Kenyon Drake against Cleveland? 9.8K.
Kenyon Drake. I mentioned that earlier. He's getting
hasn't done much since his monster game in Week 9.
Yeah, that's true. He's only got one touchdown, so I'm not really using him in the end zone for rushing. I think he's only got one touchdown in the year, period. I don't know if that's a viable play. Well, I mean, it is against Cleveland.
Well, probably in that same price range would be, a very much a viable play would be Philip Lindsay.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't like Lindsay's matchup, and the total for that game's not very high either. I mean, it is Kansas City, but Lindsay doesn't catch the ball. On any other site, like FanDuel, where it's only a half-point PPR, I'd say Lindsay's a great play. But when you're talking these sites where we're getting that point per reception is so valuable, like DK and FantasyDraft,
I agree.
It just doesn't work for me. He doesn't catch the ball.
Well, that's kind of why I was
put
on
out
Ronald
there.
Jones is in terms of he's getting 4 or 5 catches a game, and he's going up against I think it's let's see here. Sorry, guys, I got distracted there. But I mean, he has a great matchup as a pass catcher. The problem is he's not getting enough looks.
Yeah, and it's split down 50-50 between Ronald Jones and Peyton Barber. You look at the last, I think it's 2 weeks worth of games. It's literally almost 50-50 who gets the ball, and it's like, your number's up now. Go out there and do things. And regardless if it's in the red zone or not the red zone, it's okay. Your number's up. Go do things. And you never know what you're going to get. If the game script goes your way and he happens to be in the game in the red zone and scores that touchdown, yay, happy joy. But there's no guarantee he's the red zone back.
I'm just going to use your own words earlier to play a little bit devil's advocate here. That 23% pass, or that rate that Mike Evans is going to have to go somewhere. So, do you see Ronald Jones getting a share of that? Considering that he has been getting
5 targets a game. I mean, maybe
it goes up to 7 or 8 targets
a game. Peyton Barber's getting 5 targets a game.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, it's just that.
I mean, a contrarian play in a GPP, sure. You're going to run a game. You're going to run a stack where you're going to throw out Winston and Godwin and OJ Howard, and you want to complete it without coming back the other way. Sure, throw Ronald Jones in there. He's going to save you some cash.
Man, that's a good point.
The last guy that I want to bring up here.
Hang on, before you do that, I just want to mention with the Kenyon Drake move, I think if you're going to do that for value, which I can understand, especially Kenyon Drake at 9.8, I think your better alternative would be AP at 9.3. Since he's basically their lead back for the rest of the season.
My concern there is Chris Thompson. He's healthy.
He's
the pass-catching back. AP doesn't catch the ball.
Well,
going back to my argument of getting those PPR points.
Maybe you're looking at 4.3 yards an attempt with this guy.
I don't know. It's AP. But again, he doesn't catch the ball.
And when he does catch the ball, it's for 20-plus yards.
Right. When? How often is that?
Well, it depends on how much he plays. But week 12 against Detroit, week 11 against the Jets, Buffalo. Well, no, let's not count the Jets. That was 2 for 5. Minnesota, 2 for 27. Buffalo, 1 for 22.
All right, last name I want to give you, and this is the opposite side of the Barkley. Patrick Laird, Miami versus the Giants. 8.8K.
Yeah. Again,
he's not sexy, but he does catch the ball out of the backfield. You look at his week over week, it's not sexy at all. 12.8 points last week. 15 rush attempts for 48 yards. 5 targets, 4 receptions, 38 yards. He
had two tough run games in the last 2 weeks with the Jets, which I was at that game, so I can tell you that was a tough run game.
And he still mustered 48 rushing yards.
On 15 attempts, which wasn't bad at all.
3.2 yards per rush.
Philly put up a strong defense against the rush that game and held it in check.
And that's one good thing Philly does is stop the run.
But when, like you said, you're talking about receiving out of the backfield. I mean, the guy's averaging 10 yards a catch out of the backfield.
And he's seeing at least 5 targets a game.
And against the
That's
Giants,
50 points right there. Or 10 points. So, yeah.
Yeah, so if he can get his feet moving against the Giants.
Oh, and nothing for nothing in this the Miami game that I think it bears mention. The Giants cut Janoris Jenkins today.
Yes, they did.
So does that bring Fitzpatrick into the fold? Does it bring Alan Hearns into the fold? Does it bring Gesicki into the fold now? Like they're not going to have the resources to stop. I'm not sure what's his name is going to play. He went out hurt last week. Right on the tip of my tongue. Devontae Parker. I'm not sure Parker's going to play.
I don't know.
If Parker plays, he becomes a smash spot. Because Jenkins would have been on him. And the Giants don't really have anyone else worthwhile at cornerback.
He participated in full today, although he's still questionable for Sunday, but he did get full practice in today. He still needs clearance.
I think, if you want to go salary and you want to play that running back slot and you in the flex, 8.8K, you're going to get your return. It might not be 2X, but he gets 16 points. He gives you your 2X.
Yeah, that's true. Parker's going to be a game time decision based on doctor's analysis.
All right, real quick, we've talked a bunch about Godwin and Lockett and Landry. Mm-hmm. We talked about Robert Woods. I just mentioned Alan Hearns, Darius Slayton we've talked about. We talked about Chris Connolly. I'd also like to mention at 9.1K, D.D. Westbrook. It probably is also in that conversation if you're making a stack with Minshew. A couple top guys that I want to bring up here and get your guys' temperature on. DeAndre Hopkins, do you go back to the well for 15K against Tennessee?
Really depends on where you're going to save your money.
Well, let's say you don't do the Godwin side at 14.6. You're not really you're paying up $400 to get Hopkins.
Mm.
Now, I think the only way that I'm going to be anywhere in the realm of that conversation is if what's that other wide receiver who's been hurt that was supposed to play and hasn't played?
Tyreek Hill's in a better situation over bigger games.
I think Tyreek Hill's in a better situation, but if you look at the Watson, Hopkins, not Kenny Stills, who's the one that was hurt? Fuller?
Yeah, Will Fuller, right?
I think it's Will Fuller.
Hey, guys, I have a name that I think we want to get into our lineup that I've just overlooked until right now.
Go for it.
Mike Williams.
I was going to bring him up.
He had a TD last week.
In the conversation.
He's got Xavier Rhodes is on him, who allows a 76% catch rate, over 12 yards per reception, and 2.09 fantasy points per target. That's about as high as it gets. And he did get a touchdown last week, his first one of the season. And he's been putting up some pretty decent. He puts up the yardage regardless. So I don't know. I think at 9,000, that's somebody who opens up a lot of other options too.
9,100, you can definitely get 2x out of him. The knee is supposedly fine also.
Any interest in Kenny Golladay?
Yes. He was in my first lineup that I built.
13.7K.
Yeah, I was just looking at him myself.
How about Amari Cooper against the Rams? 12-3.
I had Cooper in a lineup and then pulled him out.
He is going up against Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't know about Cooper this week, to be honest.
Cortland Sutton, talking about your Drew Lock.
Yeah, it's a tough. He's got Shavarius Ward on him. That's not. There's much better options out there this week.
Christian Kirk. I think the only way you go with Kirk is if you're going to go stack with Kyler Murray.
He's got Denzel Ward on him, so that's not a good matchup.
See, I had Cortland Sutton here with Breland on him. That's interesting that we have two different correlate. If Breland's on him, he has a great matchup. And last one that Danny Amendola at 8K. Any interest? He's got Sean Murphy Bunting on him.
He's ridden my bench all year long in my fantasy leagues, and I drafted him.
I just don't know if I want any part of that Detroit team right now.
I think I ran him 1 week against Minnesota, and it paid off. But
the matchup is good. I would not go.
Matchup,
sure. That matchup's fantastic. The price is right.
They just don't throw the ball to him anymore.
He's a guy. Yeah, I just think if you're trying to build a lineup and you have 8,000 left and you're like, you need a flex spot or whatever, sure, I wouldn't have a problem playing that.
Yeah,
all right. Let's go real quick before we build. Let's talk tight end here. At the top of the heap, you got Kittle at 12.9. Ertz at 11.3. Someone that we haven't talked about that I think is in a really good spot, going back to your narrative web of everyone wanting to play last game in Oakland, Darren Waller at 10.3, going up against Jacksonville.
Again, it's a consideration if you want to stack or get a decent piece of that game. 3 touchdowns. They throw the ball a lot to him. He's got 72 receptions as a tight end. So he's definitely seen good amount of action this year, and the games that they go to him, he puts up numbers.
Yep.
Against Kansas City, which was a 9-point score for that team. Okay, they lost 40-9. They went to him 7 times, and he put up 100 yards. No touchdowns, but that's 20 points.
Yep.
There's your 2x value. Even last week, only 6 for 72. That's 12 average. The guy gets yards when he sees the ball. 12 last week, 14 the week before that, 13 the week before that, 15, 13, 26. The guy averages yards receiving.
I would not be opposed to running 2 tight end in a lineup this week.
I'm doing that.
Like run your Ertz in your tight end spot.
And then I have Larry as a flex, and I think you could usually go with Ian Thomas again at 6,000.
Ian Thomas is here at 6K.
The Seattle is giving up more yards than Arizona. The tight ends. It's
Seattle right now is the worst performing team in the NFL against tight end. Worse than Arizona.
Yeah, they just haven't given up the TDs, but they're giving up a ton of yardage. It's and more receptions.
My only concern with the Waller move, and you mentioning double tight ends running Zach Ertz, then for another $200, Austin Hooper.
Against San Fran,
the guy scores touchdowns.
I know.
Week over week.
And he's not going to be high owned either.
And he scores touchdowns.
My concern there is Atlanta's team total. They're only projected for 19 points. So you give him the Julio Jones. So there's, 2 touchdowns to Julio. There's 14 points. And the rest of your points are coming from field goals. So do you really think Austin Hooper gets 1 touchdown and Julio gets 1 touchdown? Where are you making these 19 points up? How are they being created?
The problem with Julio is he's not giving you value.
And you have no Calvin Ridley anymore.
Touchdown.
There's no Calvin Ridley anymore to take the pressure off Julio. So
he doesn't produce. At a 13-2 this week, you're not going to get that. What was he last week? 13-something, and he put up 11. The week before that, he was 12-something and put up 11. He hasn't done anything since Seattle.
Hey, man, I'm just putting names out there.
That's the fear I have with him. It's Julio Jones. This is a guy you went to every week last year. You know?
All right, let's build, and we can keep talking about this as we go.
Actually, wasn't Julio the guy that had a force field around the end zone for the?
I mean, look at last year. I mean, the last 6 weeks, it's 20-plus points every week.
Yeah, but yes, the end zone was the problem. The same thing with Fournette this year. It's like,
all right. So the placeholder lineup I have is the one that I read to you earlier in the show: Tannehill, Fournette, Sanders, Davis, Emmanuel Sanders, Zach Ertz, Raheem Mostert, Chris Godwin, and Tampa Bay Bucks. I could probably honestly say, out of everything we've talked about, the only spot I'm not clicking an X on is Zach Ertz.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unless we feel good about Tannehill.
I've got Ertz in there myself, so I'm good with that.
All right. Quarterback.
I mean, look, we talked about that. I like the Tannehill play. I've been up in the air between Rodgers and Tannehill, and it depends on how you build this lineup, where you want to stack, if you want to stack. So those are the two quarterbacks I'm looking at this week. So you guys spit it out there. Who do you like?
You know, I'm not.
I mean, we talk
like totally. You've talked a lot of names. I think I think there's a lot of options, and I actually really like when you mentioned that Rodgers at 1% ownership, and that's very intriguing to me.
Yeah.
Like the Rodgers Lazard stack. Yeah, that's interesting.
It's an iffy stack. I mean, you're banking on Lazard being that guy again, and he hasn't been that guy. Okay, 2 weeks ago he was the guy against the Giants. Yeah, you know, so it's iffy. But you've got no Juju. You've got a hurt Adams, who's most likely going to be limited because it's more important to have him going forward than to hurt him now. Green Bay is in the playoffs. You know, so that's the notes I'm getting out of it. You know, I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything, but, you know, we also talked about the Giant game. I mean, Eli Manning or Ryan Fitzpatrick at 10-2, 11-7. Both of those guys could put up big points too. You know, that could be one of the best games for the Giants at putting up 50 points. And
you watched the Miami game last week. How did that O-line handle the pass rush?
He was pressured a lot. There was a lot of inside pressure, especially coming off the left side, which they didn't seem to cover as well. But, you know, Fitzpatrick is Fitzpatrick and handled it very well. I mean, he 21 completions, 245 yards, did throw the pick. The bigger problem there was the pressure that came in caused the 2 fumbles. You know, his passer rating garbage at 65.
I'm going to throw a couple of names out there. Garoppolo, Fitzpatrick, Brady, or Wentz.
What? It's hard for me to go with Wentz with the receivers so debilitated there.
Yeah, Finn.
Of those names, well,
Garoppolo home going against Atlanta.
I don't think I like Brady. Just that offense isn't clicking.
I'm just putting him out there strictly because of price. 11-6.
No, yeah,
Brady going against Cincinnati, and they already have the whole playbook. So I mean,
well, okay. So Garoppolo against New Orleans, 32 points. Garoppolo against Arizona, 34 points. So there's an argument to be said that he has exploited his good matchups, like Atlanta is this week. So I think that's a fine play.
Any objection, Webb?
I have no objection to it. Like I said, I told you who I like. You know my lineup.
Well, I'm trying not to also build the same lineup that we just went through with yours. Yeah. I'm trying to get different here and see how much of the spectrum we can actually hit on. I'm looking at more of a broad thing, not what lineup beats what lineup, but how many of the players that we're picking out of these lineups that we've built actually hit.
Now my question is, are you going to stack this game?
Then I think you got to go Samuel with the best matchup.
Deebo Samuel, yeah, I have to agree with that.
Which means you're putting Mostert in a flex?
Not opposed.
I'm not opposed to that either because that could actually be an addition to the stack with Guapolo. I mean, he could.
What if there's a way? Okay, talking about all these cheaper guys out there.
Oh, I thought about that. All those cheap running backs and just go that way. And
I do want to get. I like Carson's spot. The only way I'd come off Carson is if I was going to go off Carson because the field's going to be on Carson and go pick up like Lockett. Like, that's kind of where I think you need to go, or DK Metcalf or something along those lines. Like, some part of that passing game just to get a part of that game if you really want it.
I think there's better options out there. I just do.
What about going in a flex spot, Kittle? With Ertz and Garoppolo and Deebo Samuel. And we don't go down the road of
2 high-end tight ends.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
It's contrarian for sure. I don't know if we can build it. I mean, it's going to spread us thin for sure. But I'm with both you guys that Ertz is in a smash spot.
Yeah, he's in a smash spot. Kittle don't see more than 6 passes a game or 6 receptions.
Well, Mostert had a receiving touchdown last week.
And he's got to make an argument for Austin Hooper. I'm sorry. Take the opposite side of it.
Oh, game stack it? Go the other way?
I mean, if you're looking at the Kittle move, I think Austin Hooper is a better tight end. Especially in that position. Because I don't believe in the Julio Jones. I mean, I
don't believe in Freeman. I don't think they're going to be able to get the run game going at all.
Yeah, I think they'll be behind, and
I don't want to pay. I don't want to pay.
The problem is the match. San Francisco's actually been very, very, very good against tight ends.
Yeah, number 2 in the league.
Yeah, but I'm certainly okay with the Garoppolo, Samuel, and Mostert. It's not terribly
Let's see if we have the money left for Mostert. I'd like to see if we can spread the cash elsewhere. Are we in on Godwin, or do we feel that that's just going too chalky at that point?
Well, I have a share of him, I'd like to maybe get some exposure to somebody else, but I like the play.
How about Landry at 12-6?
That's where I was thinking about.
Landry's a great move. Allen Robinson II at 12-7.
Yeah, I see that too. He's probably going to get Jari Alexander on him.
Let's go Landry, because I think you really have he's a number. I think he's a number 1 at a number 2, like 1.5 price. I mean, he's a discounted number 1.
What about Hunt? 12,000. Gurley 11-3. We talked about him.
I say let's throw him in. That's
who, Gurley?
Yeah.
Against Dallas?
I think Gurley is a better cash game play than a GPP play, but I think it's actually
I like him opposite.
What does Dallas give up on the ground?
They're ranked 17th, so they're mid-pack.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I'm just curious what the numbers were. Is it over 100? I mean, Gurley hasn't run for over 100 all year long.
He's come close 2 out of the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, well, yeah. Last week, 20-something yards short with a touchdown. Last week's yards per carry was horrific, in my opinion. But I'm not opposed to the Gurley move.
I'm not in love with it.
Yeah, you got to get at least 18 out of him.
Yeah, I'm not in love with it. James White?
I don't.
Or do you just not see that game script?
Not this week. I don't see it. I mean, what did he do last week? 8 points? And that was supposed to be a game script for him?
Well, do we agree that Chris Carson is kind of like the smash of smash? I mean, it's chalky, but you can still win with a chalky player.
Well, you need some smash in there.
Yeah.
I just don't know if we're going to have the money for like a Carson and Fournette or...
You put Carson in, it leaves you 27-3.
I think if I have to choose between Carson and Fournette, I'm choosing Carson.
Now let's go look at defense right off the bat. Detroit Lions, Tampa Bay at 45.
How about the Rams against Dallas at 47?
Rams are 57.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 57. Never mind.
I'm looking at it.
You're looking at value.
Right, if you're going to punch a defense, the Detroit-Tampa game probably lines up the best, unless you want to go with the Miami-Giant game. But Miami's defense...
What about Chargers-Minnesota?
Can't seem to put up Chargers.
Do you think the Chargers at home can...
Chargers defense?
I mean, we saw what they did to Green Bay.
Yeah. And
you think they can replicate that at home?
They only scored 7 points. So they haven't scored... against Denver, they scored...
That was it. Denver was their biggest game at 14.
It's been like 9, 7, 4, 3, 2, 6. It's like...
In the last...
It's a consistent one. Huh?
What about the Dolphins?
It's another team that just... I mean...
Their average is terrible.
Yeah, it's a good matchup, but they're horrible. I mean, they're averaging no better. I think if you're going to go for value here...
How many sacks does Detroit have?
25. 5 interceptions, 11 forced fumbles, 2 touchdowns on defense.
You can talk me into Detroit, I guess. We're punting defense, so we're saving cash. I mean, we get 5 points out of them, we hit value.
But
so
why not? Okay, we've talked about all these value players. Why not spend $1,000 more and get somebody like the Steelers or the Rams who are putting up every week in the teens?
Because you got 2 flex spots to fill here. I mean, you can go with the Rams at 57, like you said. The Niner-Atlanta game, I think that's going to be a high enough scoring game that...
No team scores any points.
I mean, against what? The Niners? I mean, the Saints just did. Atlanta can do the same thing.
No, I mean, are you going to get your sacks, though?
That's the thing, are you?
You're going to get your sacks, your interceptions, your fumble recoveries.
But you got to remember, they score over 20 points, and now you've lost 6 points.
Yep.
Right off the bat. You start, So, I mean, you'd probably be better off at the 6,000 mark looking at the Pittsburgh-Buffalo game. But I think for the value here, if you're looking to save some money, because we got 2 flex spots to fill, where we can spend 10,000 and change ahead, or
I'll go. I'll put lines in. I'll put lines in for now.
Yeah, we can in and then pull it out. I mean,
so we got 11-4 per slot. So we can either go star and scrub, or we can go 2 mid-level.
I think we've got options. I don't think it's a star and scrub this week. I think you got options.
Well, I'm saying like it will go with an Allen Robinson the second, and then come back with a Patrick Laird or a Darius Slayton or somebody of that lower valued ilk.
Right.
Well, let's focus it on running backs. So we already have 2 wide receivers, so we might end up with a third. We might end up with 2 tight ends.
All right. So what do we got? 11-4.
DK Metcalf, AJ Brown,
Kenny Galladay,
Joe Mixon, Robert Woods at 11-7, Keenan Allen at 11-9, Devin Singletary, Cortland Sutton, Golden Tate, Devonta Freeman, Miles Sanders, Gallup, Shepard, Lindsey, 10-6. Now we're in the mid 10,000 range. Austin Hooper, 10-5. Terry McLaurin at 10-5.
Why are you at the 10s? What about like the likes of Kenny Galladay at 13-7? Leaves you 9,100.
Okay, who do we have in our lineups? All I have is Garoppolo, Samuel, Landry, and Detroit.
Garoppolo, Gurley, Carson,
you put
Samuel, Landry, Ertz, Detroit.
Okay, you had more guys we committed to than I realized.
Well, Gurley's in there as a placeholder to hold up cash. He might not survive.
Right.
I think we're all in on Carson. We're in on the stack of Garoppolo, Samuel. Landry, we all seem to agree on. Ertz, we're across the board in agreement on.
Right.
That Detroit game just scares the shit out of me. I know Tampa Bay can't defend the pass. They're worse than the league, but...
So put the Chargers in.
Huh? No. I'm not talking that. I'm talking... You brought up...
Galladay.
I just don't know if the quarterback can get him the ball.
I don't know. Last 3 weeks, you've seen 14 touches or 14 receptions for 200 plus yards and 2 touchdowns.
Who do you think? We have a couple flex spots. Is there somebody in there who you think is great value this week?
Darius Slayton.
9.2K.
Couple of
Mike Williams at 9.1.
Oh, yeah. Let's go there.
Ouch, sorry.
Mike Williams. Leaves us 13-7.
9-1.
And we can create more money if we want to. We can get rid of Gurley and go down to someone in the 10. So Gurley's 11-3.
Do you want to go with Barkley or Fournette?
13-7 is Kenny Galladay.
We got Philip Lindsay at 10-6. Running backs, cheaper running backs. David Montgomery at 10-4. Mostert 10-2. James White 10-1. Tariq Cohen 10-2.
Any of these games affected by weather before we Steelers?
Chicago, Green Bay is always susceptible to weather. It's in Green Bay.
Steelers, Bills. It's gonna be cold.
Okay, I'm just...
Bears, Packers, 14 degrees.
Run game.
Yeah.
Okay, if we were to play Mostert instead of, which I like, and then you could throw it, if you want to go with a 4 wide receiver lineup, you could put Goodwin in there at 14-6. You could go down to Leonard Fournette at 14-3, and you'd have some cash to move up at defense.
So take out... All right, I took out Gurley. You're saying put Mostert in. Leaves us 14-8. Which we could get Zeke, Godwin, Barkley, Fournette. No Barkley. Now you're saying Barkley? Did I just see that?
No Barkley.
No Barkley.
I don't like any of these running backs, period.
You don't like any? You don't like Elliott, Barkley, or Fournette against Oakland?
No, I don't.
What about Godwin? Do you like Godwin against Detroit?
14-6. I mean, he puts up numbers. He got 1,200 receiving yards this year. The last 2 games have been shaky. Well, he's playing the Lions, though. I don't know. I don't want to be the deciding factor on it. I like the idea of stuffing another running back in there, but I just...
Aaron Jones.
I don't like Barkley.
Aaron Jones at 13.7 gives us $1,300 to do something with defense.
I mean, you can move up.
Yeah, you could get the Rams, I think, at 15.57 for that. It's not horrible.
All right, at least you have 56 if you throw him in there.
Okay, here's another possibility. If we go with the Steelers, who defense at 6, it leaves us 13.3 exactly for Jacobs, and we.
I don't think you're going to get. It's a 4:00 game. You're not going to get that news.
Yeah, that is the problem. As much as I like it, it is a problem.
Well, then let's say. Okay, let's say this: are we in agreement that if we get the news that Jacobs is going to play, that's what we would do? That Jacobs would be the guy that would go into that spot? We'll.
All right. So what? There's nobody around him that we can put in. I'd rather have used more money to go down to him than have 13.3 left and we're screwed with either Julio Jones or have 13.4 and it's Edelman. Because anything below that, I'm not really keen on, unless we're going to drop in Kittle at 12.9. If that's the pivot play. If we're in agreement that we played Josh Jacobs, and if the news comes out before 1 o'clock on Sunday that he's not playing, our pivot play from there is either Austin Eckler, we save the money for Eckler.
But if he's not playing, then it's a total reshuffle, because then we're absolutely putting DeAndre Washington into that spot, right? I mean, that's...
And what's his price? DeAndre Washington is 9.2. And he's going to be chalky as fuck. If that's the case.
Dilemmas.
So basically the question is, do you want to put in a player that we know is going to play guaranteed, that we like, and if the news comes out before 1 o'clock that he's playing, we can pivot off?
Why don't we just settle it right now and put Chris Godwin in?
I'm fine with that.
Can we go back down on defense?
It gives you $200. You don't need to do anything. It leaves $200 on the table. You can change defense if you want.
Who's at 4,700? That's worth a while. No one.
Right. Well, I put Steelers
Falcons at 46. Panthers at 45.
I'm not going down the Panthers again. I'd rather take the Broncos at 43.
I don't hate Detroit at 45, only because Winston throws interceptions, and any interception can be returned for a touchdown.
And Detroit does have 2 of them so far.
All right, so lineup: Garoppolo, Raheem Mostert, Chris Carson, Deebo Samuel, Jarvis Landry, Zach Ertz, Mike Williams, Chris Godwin, Detroit Lions defense. This
is certainly different than we've done at any lineup with this season, going with 4 wide receivers, but I'm okay with it.
This is true. Hey, are we all in agreement? Am I clicking save?
I'm hitting the play button, so.
Yep.
Saved.
Played.
All right, Webby.
3.
Oh, do you want to give out your sports betting, or do you need time? We can do our contrarian picks while we do conviction plays.
Yeah, let's do a conviction plays while I bring that up.
I did not total last week, so I will total that and drop it in Slack.
Bastard. Log in.
All right, Webby, you went first last time. It is my turn to go first. Dan, you are in the 3 hole.
Okay.
Delete. All right, quarterback. I'm going to go with I'm going to go with Tannehill. Webby, you're up.
You took the 10. Let me take a look here. That's the wrong button. That button. You took Tannehill. I'm going to go... Let's go Dak Prescott.
Dak. All right. Dan.
I'll go broken-handed all with Jameis Winston.
All right. Running back. I'm going to go with... Oh, boy. Let's see here. I'm going to go with McCaffrey. Webby?
Austin Eckler.
I'm going to go with Derrick Henry, but can I put in if for some reason Henry doesn't play because he hasn't practiced this week, Chris Carson will be my backup.
Okay. Wide receiver. I'm going to go DeAndre Hopkins.
$15,000. Taking them all at the top. Okay.
I'm taking them all from the top.
Yeah, you are. You are. Allen Robinson.
Chris Godwin. So I need that Winston Godwin stack to hit.
Tight end, Zach Ertz. I love being number one.
Fucking bastard.
Heard that.
Tyler Higbee.
I like it. I like that move.
Travis Kelce.
All right, Webby, go for it.
All right. My parlay this week. Last week's did not hit, by the way. Lost on the Saints game and the Miami game. Taking the New York Giants over the Dolphins on the money line. This is such a tough week for this, too. Going to take the Packers over the Bears. Minus 220 on the money line. On a long shot, going to throw the Eagles in there. Going to take the New England Patriots over the Cincinnati Bengals. That'd be team number 4 in the parlay. The Minnesota Vikings over the Chargers. And the 49ers over the Falcons. That gives you a plus 801 odds. $100 bet gives you 900 back.
So what's that? One more time? Run that down.
New York Giants over the Miami Dolphins. New England Patriots over the Cincinnati Bengals. Minnesota Vikings over the Chargers. The Green Bay Packers over the Bears. The Niners over the Falcons. The Eagles over the Redskins.
Just to clarify, is this straight up or are there the points you have to cover too on these?
Just the money line. These are all to win.
Well, I like that.
Yeah, it's like I said, $100 is plus 801, so it pulls back $901 if it hits. Place bet. If you want to play some of the point spreads this week, that Kansas City Denver game looks inviting at 10. If you can tease it to 14, Let's see what that does if I tease it to 14. Hold on a second. Game lines. Broncos plus 14. It's minus 215. It's really not worth it to play it that way. It's unfortunate because it's an interesting game to take a look at. Take the Seahawks straight up, give the 6.5 points to Carolina. I have a side bet, small bet on that. The Rams-Dallas game. It's a 4 o'clock game. The over is 48.5. That's certainly worthy to take a look at. The point spread is only 1 point on that. If you can tease it to 4, whichever way you want to go with it. I'm liking the Cowboys at taking 4, right? Because they're +1. And if you want some action on the Monday night game, Saints are minus 360 on the money line. The over and under is 46. Saints are not in the best position with wide receivers or receivers in general. It's tough on the over and under. The money's even both ways at minus 110. I think that game can still go over. Saints win, over, give the 9 points. That's all I got.
All right. So I have our totals for last week. I had to actually go do some serious digging here. Web Boy, you totaled...
Winner, chicken dinner.
None of our wide receivers did anything. So, as a matter of fact, Web, yours didn't score a point.
Yeah. Who did they have?
Alshon Jeffrey.
Oh, right. Well, yeah, he got hurt.
Let me see here. Web Boy, 30.08 for your quarterback, Deshaun Watson. Nick Chubb scored you 15.7. Jared Cook, we scored you 20.4 for a total of 66.18.
Nice.
Dan, you had Sam Darnold.
Oh, boy. That didn't work.
Scored you 18.10. You had Christian McCaffrey, who scored you 24.5. You had Devontae Adams, who scored you 8.1. And you had George Kittle, who gave you 18.7 for a grand total of 66.9.
Oh.
69.4, sorry.
Okay, so I'm in third place.
You're in second place right now.
Well, second, yeah.
And then there's my lineup, which I'm pretty sure didn't outscore either one of those. I had Lamar Jackson, who was at 20.8. I had Alvin Kamara at 7.1. I had Mike Evans at 13.1. He did score the most. And I had Travis Kelce at 19 for a total of 60.
Oh, Dan takes the win this week.
Dan takes the win.
Woohoo!
By a squeaker of less than 3 points.
Field goal.
Yep. All right, gentlemen. Any parting words before we...
I can take my bet off the table for the Saints to win the Super Bowl and make money on it.
Really?
Uh-huh.
How much money would you make?
$4.44.
What do you stand to win if they win the Super Bowl?
20 times my bet.
What'd you put down, 100?
50.
So $1,000.
No, 50 to win 500.
50 to win 500?
10 times, yeah.
10 times. All right, Dan, any parting words?
If you playing hockey for the fun of it, treat it as baseball. A goalie is a pitcher, and then game stack and find a cheap center or a cheap wide wing to be able to create a cheaper game stack.
Alrighty, well, I got no parting words other than let's go win some money. This has been DFS Fantasy Foreplay for Week 15. Good luck, everyone. We will see you next week.